Now, as our little skit at the beginning alluded, Jake, that we have a new word in our vernacular, and that beautiful word is...
Stanch bracking.
Yes, staunch bracking.
Yeah.
Much like fracking, but more stauncher.
Yeah. More staunch, more staunchy.
Now, this week is all about the branch stacking. This week in the current affairs program, and I think The Age maybe was involved in this particular news story. Excuse me. I'm just mentioning The Age makes me belch. Their story about extensive branch stacking. We're going to get to what branch stacking is and who was involved and where does all this lead? What rabbit hole have we fallen down?
Yes.
This is all about the Labor Party in Victoria. So. And it all focuses around a particular MP, Adam Somyurek. Aside from being something that makes me feel nostalgic about going camping, Jake, what is branch stacking?
Great question, Greg.
I know.
And a tremendous cadence. The delivery, I couldn't fault you on it. It was you stuck the landing, buddy. That was fantastic.
We're gonna give me a score. Look, I'm holding up my score. The score
8.7. 8.10. I love it. Yes, branch stacking is essentially when you falsely inflate the political party membership of a local branch of a political party in order to ensure, essentially in order to allow you to control the vote on certain things. Certainly the most likely thing that your stacked branch is going to vote on is the pre-selection of a particular party candidate that might be going or might be up for say the next local election or the next state or federal election. So in practice, it might mean that you're able to get your mate Steve-O selected as the Labor Party candidate, and when he's elected, the two of you will form a super powerful voting bloc.
Yeah.
To pressure your party into doing whatever your special interest cause is. And it's important because pre-selections for safe seats in the state parliament are often determined by fewer than 50 votes.
Okay, so every vote counts, right? It's not like a whole state election or something like that where there's many votes in between one and the other.
Correct, and in this particular example, there were 16,000 members in the local branch, right?
Right.
And
that were branch stacked. Oh, no, there were 16 in total.
So 16,000 in total.
Carry on. Yep.
They're estimating around a quarter of those members were essentially stacked.
Just doing some maths here, Jake. Just doing some maths. Quarter of 16,000.
A quarter.
Well, minus the 4.
Oh, yes. So about
right. So 4,000. Okay, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So and this can be done in many different ways. You might, I just spoke about your mate Steve, but you might have, a whole bunch of other mates that you might like to say, hey, guys, could you please sign up to this party and come and vote for me? Look, we've been friends forever, et cetera, et cetera. That's one form of branch stacking. The branch stacking that Adam Somyurek has been accused of, and I should say he's just been accused of it. He has been stood down and he has been sacked from the party. But he does deny involvement in branch stacking. So
does he?
Want to, he has, yes.
Right. So this is alleged branch stacking.
Alleged, correct? Yes. Indeed. So the kind of branch stacking that he has been accused of is essentially where you might completely fabricate the identity of an individual or sign them up to a party completely without their knowledge. So they might either be a fake person and not exist, or they might be a real person and just have no idea that they've been added to the party register.
Am I wrong in the information that I might have about the fact that some of them might have been like immigrants or something like that, like people who are sort of very vulnerable. And I heard an interesting comment during the week about the fact that these people may actually have a sort of a disposition to be quite submissive towards governments and things like that because of the countries where they've come from, which means that we're really taking advantage of these people from a sort of psychosis point of view, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also that, they absolutely. And psychosis, psychological, hey, what's the difference?
I'll Google it later.
But you are absolutely right, and it sort of goes a little bit deeper, because if these individuals are, say, on temporary visas, on working visas, or in fact they're looking to fully immigrate to Australia and become an Australian citizen, if a government minister comes to their house and asks them to sign a form, or sorry, not just a government minister, but a representative for that government minister were to do that, I would suggest that they're probably very likely to do it. So yeah, it's a really wonky thing, but it's not illegal. This is the very interesting thing here.
It is interesting.
While on the face of it, it is wholly inappropriate. It has been suggested by many in the media this week that it happens quite a lot, it seems.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A bit of pork barreling.
Yeah, a bit of pork barreling. Yeah. Bit of sports rotting.
Exactly, but I suppose the less intense side of this is that first version that I mentioned. Where you've got a group of mates and you're like, can you support yourself to get a membership so that you can vote for me in this next pre-selection? That'd be great. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. That you can understand. It's the other malicious one that is just gross, and it is potentially. I think there were a couple of former Labor Prime Ministers, Bob Hawke and Paul Keating, had previously described it as an absolute rot in the wood of democracy. So it is certainly
rot in the wood of democracy.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I mixed a metaphor in there, at least one. But
I think we should speak more about the wood of democracy in a later episode, Jake. Yeah, certainly.
Exactly.
Certainly.
Well, when you think about stacked branches, you do think of a reasonable amount of wood. So
I think that's the bit that's confusing, isn't it? The branch itself is actually the sort of the Labor Party branch, isn't it? It's like an actual building that they're talking about in the branch stacking. It's not really stacking of tree branches, like as the metaphor.
So the branch is essentially the electorate. So it is the local group.
Yes.
It is it's the local group of the Labor Party within a particular electorate, which is known as the branch.
All right. Well, that's fine. It doesn't matter. UK, this, that, tomato. Now, Daniel Andrews, who's been on the news all morning, because he has decided to. God, can you imagine only being able to invite 5 people over to your house? But that's exactly what he's done in Victoria. Mm-hmm. He's all over the news at the moment. So because he's got a fair few, he's got a bit of an outbreak going on down there with coronavirus. He also told everyone that why on earth would you bother going to South Australia for a holiday? So he's been so good. So what has his response been? I mean, has he begun the denials? I don't know the man. He runs around in one of those disguises. So how can anybody possibly know who Adam Semyurak is? What's his response been?
Well, so it's been unfortunate. I'll say this much. So at the very beginning, I would say, so on the 60-minute episode aired on Sunday evening, and on Monday morning, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews did sack him, using very direct language. He said, I haven't given Adam Semyurak the opportunity to quit his position. He is being sacked.
Great.
So it's very direct language.
It is very direct.
He did say that he doesn't have a lot to do with Adam Semyurak. A tremendous amount. That also went up to the national leadership, the federal, the prime minister, the federal opposition leader of the Labor Party, Anthony Albanese. He distanced himself very quickly, saying this is a Victorian problem. And we got to get to the bottom of it. I didn't even know this guy. Most people in Labor didn't know this guy. And his, Anthony Albanese's claim that he didn't know this guy is a bit wonky because...
Is it?
Adam Semyurak was on the national executive for the Labor Party, as was Anthony Albanese.
And just before you do that, let me
know the guy sitting next to you.
No, but let me run through a couple of things that Adam Somyurek had done prior to this. So this was great because I got this off his Wikipedia page. Prior to his conviction for driving whilst disqualified, he was driving for at least 12 months prior to the conviction. Allegations of inappropriate behaviour in 2015 led to an investigation by the Secretary of Department of Premier and Cabinet, found he had bullied his chief of staff, Dimity Paul, which is a name that I've heard before, but I don't know where. And yes, it was the age as well, which was involved in that. So I mean, and throughout this whole time, he's been promoted. What a what does this mean, Jake? You know, when we live in a world where
it means is when you look at the intent behind, the intent behind branch stacking is to give you power. So this guy threw around the fact that he was able to drive a tremendous amount of votes at a state level in order to get whatever he wanted, through the party. And because of that, he was thought of as quite powerful. So, invariably, it is just so unfortunate when we find out that, some of the people in Parliament are awful people. And they have pursued power, for their own means. They're not necessarily in it for their local electorate, but maybe they are. But either way, they are, not so great people.
No.
But there are also plenty of people in Parliament who are great.
Yeah, that's right.
Altruistic and are absolutely in it for their local members, for their local constituents.
Absolutely.
But it's just so unfortunate when we hear about people like this. The national executive, they took action pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They've appointed the former Premier Steve Bracks and the former federal MP Jenny Macklin as administrators of the Victorian branch of the Labor Party, and they've suspended all state committees as they sort of deal with this fallout. This extraordinary federally led intervention is also expected to include suspending all voting rights in the Victorian branch until at least 2023.
That's just nuts, isn't it?
It is nuts, and we've got there is potentially a federal election coming up in 2021.
Yes, it's exciting. So, I'm pumped.
Yeah,
I'm pumped already.
It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
And, okay, so a couple of things here, right? One of my favorite parts of this whole story is when Adam Somyurek gets tremendously frustrated at the fact that all this stuff's coming out. And he ends up releasing text messages from Byrne. What is it? Anthony?
Anthony Byrne, yes.
Anthony Byrne, who offered his full assistance to the Deputy Chair of the Federal Parliament Intelligence Committee. The text messages revealed that Mr. Byrne called an unnamed female Labor activist a rat, something or other, and he also wanted to, urinate on the corpse of former left faction heavyweight Alan Griffin in these personal messages, which also savaged former leader Bill Shorten, Victoria Premier Daniel Andrews, and retired Victorian federal MP Michael Danby. In a statement on Wednesday night, Mr. Byrne said, Somyurek has selectively released a hand-picked selection of my text messages. And I was like, really? Of course he's selected some text messages. Yeah. It's not the ones which say, hey, mate, my Uber's a bit late.
He probably had them in a black folder, labelled and ready to go. This is the thing. I mean, so
funny.
Anthony Byrne has been implicated in this, and he's stood down from his federal role.
Right.
But in the 60 Minutes interview, it was, there was a whole series of videos, secret recordings that were taken within Anthony Byrne's, state representative office.
Right.
So that's why he's done it. Essentially, Somyurek said, it was this guy. Look, I told you, I had all this dirt on you. I'm going to release it now, buddy.
Yeah, look, it's slightly amusing. I don't think anyone's getting hurt by this, so maybe it's something that we can laugh about. That'd be great if it was. But it's certainly not good for the Labor Party, particularly, Jake, as we discussed last night on an amazing podcast called the Aussie English Podcast. We discussed the idea that the Eden Monaro election is upcoming.
Yes. It is, and it's bad timing for for a scandal to occur in Labor, and actually a New South Wales state MP Jodie McKay has also been stood down from her role in the branch stacking. So she's in the New South Wales Parliament, as is Eden Menario. Well, not in state Parliament, but it's in the it's in the state of New South Wales. Just in terms of your comment that this hasn't hurt anyone. On the face of it, I agree with you. There is, of course, the potential that because of the power that Somyurek held in the Labor, Victorian Labor branch, there is every possibility that good candidates, reasonable candidates, were blocked from getting pre-selected for seats because of essentially the way that his power was thrown around from these fake members. So
all right, well, I take back the fact that I laughed at this, Jake. It's not serious at all. It's not. It's very serious. It's very serious. And as you know, Jake,
I totally agree with you. I just wanted to give that extra context.
The classic saying, there's no good time for a branch stacking. So I shouldn't have jumped ahead of myself.